So this was not a project I had on my to-do list. It came out of pure necessity. Well, on my way home Thursday night, my wife called and said there's a weird noise coming from near the fridge. When I got home, we tracked it down further and pinpointed it somewhere between the water supply line and the kitchen sink. We didn't notice any water leaking inside the house, and it had been raining for a few days straight, so the ground outside was already really saturated. So that night I shut the water off by the meter, and the next morning we dug up the sprinkler system, which is just on the other side of the wall outside of the house, near that location. I was really hoping that the irrigation system had a leak because that would be a pretty easy, straightforward fix, but all the pipes around the irrigation system and the sprinkler valves were bone dry. So we dug up some more around the edge of the house, and I turned the water back on, and we could see the water escaping through a few of the seams in the slab. So at this point I realized it wasn't a simple DIY repair. So the first plumber I called quoted us about $500 to cut up the slab and repair the leak, but he required us to contact a leak detection company who would pinpoint the leak for about $375. So in total it would be about $900 to repair the leak. He also recommended that since the copper pipes are about 35 years old, to go ahead and repipe the house. I've known of people with offices or other homes that had old copper pipes, which also required a repipe once the pipe started to fail. This was my first time actually going through the experience personally, so I contacted our homeowner's insurance company to see if they covered those types of repairs. The insurance company basically said that they would pay to open up the slab and close the slab, but they wouldn't pay for the actual repair. Plus our deductible was about $1,000, so basically a repair or repipe was coming out of pocket. By this time it was Friday afternoon, and I called several local plumbers. Without actually seeing the job, some of the rough quotes were between $4,000 and $10,000 for a whole house repipe, and that was only when they could eventually get to it. One plumber told me they may be able to squeeze me in after about 2 weeks, but that would be pushing it. A lot of the plumbers sounded backlogged, and a few referred me to other plumbers. Now obviously, we can survive without running water, and I even had a 55-gallon drum of collected rainwater that we've been using to fill the reservoir tanks in the toilets so we can flush in the meantime. But not having running water is a major inconvenience if you have to get ready for work, cook, do laundry, dishes, etc. I was pretty confident in my plumbing abilities, having just remodeled my bathroom, which required redoing a lot of the plumbing with PEX pipes, and although I was not excited with the thought of DIYing my whole house repipe, nor was my wife, I felt I didn't have an option at the time. Originally, I was just going to make a couple temporary connections to supply water to one of the toilets and maybe the kitchen sink, but that would require capping the existing water supply into the house, because that valve broke, and tapping the main water supply to run a few lines to those locations. And by that time I'd be halfway to repiping the whole house, so I decided to tackle the huge task myself. I quickly made a plan to figure out how many fittings I needed and headed to Home Depot. This would be the first of many Home Depot trips that weekend. I started by tapping the water supply line that fed the irrigation system close to the garage. I dug a trench and ran a PVC pipe to the side of the garage where the exterior penetration was going to be. Once the PVC pipe was inside the house, I converted it to 3/4 inch PEX, which ran straight up into the attic. From there, a T divided the supply line to each half of the house. Half of the house near the garage has a washing machine, hot water heater, and kitchen, while the other half has 2 bathrooms. Well, initially installing the PEX, I used metal pipe straps, which are not recommended at all. I quickly swapped those for plastic straps or used them on top of pipe insulation once the water was back on. The metal straps can cut into the PEX over time. Now, once the water was into the attic, from there it was a pretty simple and straightforward process. A whole lot of running PEX here and there, adding fittings to make the various connections and angles. Now I'm headed back into the attic to wrap the pipes in insulation and restrap them. And I did use 2 pieces of 1.25" pipe to run the smaller 1/2" water line through to the other side of the house over a vaulted ceiling area, which was a little too tight to crawl through. It's not impossible, but using the pipes to run the PEX through made it much easier to feed the PEX to the other side of the house. So as I mentioned before, I ran 3/4 inch PEX into the house, which was split into 2 3/4 inch lines with a T-fitting. One goes to the hot water heater, and the other 3/4 inch cold line feeds the bathroom side of the house. Now from the hot water heater, a hot 3/4 inch output pipe was split into two 1/2 inch pipes with a T fitting. Each of the 1/2 inch hot pipes supplies opposite sides of the house. I opted to feed the bathroom side with a single 1/2 inch hot water pipe since only one shower is typically used at a time. This will also reduce water waste and heat up times. Matt Reisinger from the Build Show did a great video on the amount of water different size pipes can hold. I'll link that video below. In hindsight, I should have obtained a permit before starting any work, but we were definitely in a time crunch. The repipe job was extremely challenging because of having to work in the attic and trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So the guest bathroom is all original to the house, and it has been on our to-do list to remodel next. That's why it was less painful that we had to remove the vanity, and I cut a big access hole to get to all the plumbing for this bathroom and the bathroom that's just on the other side of this wall. I already had all of the tools, so I only had to come out of pocket the cost of materials. To repipe my entire house cost about $800 in materials, and I was able to complete it myself in about 2 days. The whole job would have gone much quicker if I had all the supplies needed, but I ended up running back to Home Depot about 5 times, so I spent roughly about 5 hours between all the Home Depot trips and planning. So if this video was helpful in answering any of your own repipe questions, please give it a like. And if you think I'm nuts for repiping my own house or saw some terrible plumbing mistakes, please let me know in the comments below. Either way, thank you for watching.